think when it comes to houseplants, we all make the same mistakes time and time again. Like, no, obviously nobody's perfect, but there's just so many of the same mistakes that are so easy to make, and it's just like no matter how experienced you get, they keep coming up over and over again. Hi guys, my name's Carson and welcome to my channel. I have so many examples of these mistakes that I'm going to talk about, and I don't know why I never learned. It just seems like it happens every single time. Not every single time, not every plant, but it does happen at least like once a month where I have one of these mishaps. I'm just like, oh, I could have avoided this easily, but I just didn't. So yeah, these are the common mistakes that I think most people make with their plants, and that can be easily avoided. The first, obviously, is overwatering, and that's one that either you overwater and you're super prone to overwatering, or you underwater and your plant dries up and shrivels and dies. Overwatering, I believe, was my most recent mistake with my death of my string of pearls. I don't know how I overwatered it because I looked at the signs and it seemed like it needed water, and I watered it, and I only watered it a little bit, but it still died. So I don't know. This one's a bit harder to fix, I suppose, if you think that you're doing it right, but this is my string of hearts. This is my string of pearls before I watered it, and then 2 days after, basically. It just shriveled up, gone, nowhere to be seen, and it's definitely long gone in the trash by now because there was nothing left of it. But that is just one that time and time again just gets me, and I'm more of a chronic underwaterer, so I don't really overwater a whole lot of my plants because I just usually wait a bit too long. But when I do overwater, it's disastrous. There's never any coming back from it for me. Another thing that I forget to do all the time, and it actually makes such a big difference, is cleaning the leaves regularly. I clean them when I remember, but sometimes I just forget when I've just been busy for such a long time, and it's just so hard to remember sometimes. And one of my plants actually that this affected is my Philodendron Macaulay's finale. Let me get that real quick and show you why you should clean your leaves of your plant. So this is my philodendron, and if you've seen my repotting video, this is the one that we repotted, and as you can see, there is actually a new leaf up there, and I'm so excited and I'm so happy that that worked out. But if you want to see that one, go check it out. It was in a state before, but so many of these leaves are they're really dusty right now even, and they just were not able to photosynthesize correctly because it was the dust when it gets on the leaves, because these are big leaves compared to the plant and most plants, it just was blocking a lot of the actual leaf and the cells. And it's kind of when you're wearing makeup all day and it clogs your pores and then you end up breaking out. Same thing with plants. They don't end up breaking out, but the leaves end up getting discolored. They don't do as well. They're not thriving. And yeah, it just happens. And so make sure at least once a week you wipe off the makeup from your leaves, because it will help the plant thrive so much easier and so much better, and it will just not put so much effort into trying to do the basic functions of being a plant, and it will actually focus on giving you new leaves or giving you prettier leaves or growing more roots and stronger roots. So definitely don't forget that one. On top of dusting your plants, you should also check for pests, and this is one I'll show you my micans one second because this applies to that. So if you've seen my houseplant tour video, you know that my micans is one of my all-time favorite plants, and this is one that I didn't really dust the leaves very often because they have that velvety texture, so it just seemed like it didn't get as dirty as quick because I was like, oh, it's just the texture of the leaves, it's fine. But when I went to go dust the leaves finally, there were spider mites on the plant, and I would have noticed it so much earlier had I just dusted once a week. And luckily it wasn't a bad case, so I was actually able to get rid of them. I would have been devastated if not, but there was a bit of damage to the leaves that had them on there. And if I literally had just checked for pests routinely, and that routinely being once a week when I dusted the leaves, I would have caught them basically straight away, and it wouldn't have turned into such a big problem, and it wouldn't have spread to some of my other plants that it did spread to that were next to this micans. So check for pests routinely, ideally once a week when you dust the leaves. Just, you know, kill two birds with one stone. The next one that I'm going to mention, I haven't done personally in a while, but it is one I made right at the start when I started getting plants, and then one that I corrected from someone else. It will make sense when I mention it, but when your pot is too big for your plant, there's too much soil, your plant drowns, it's gonna die no matter what. I had these peperomia, I'm just gonna put the type on the name, I'm finished trying to butcher these names. I had a peperomia and I had 3 of them, and I thought, oh, 2 of these could fit into this big square pot that I have. I'm going to repot it directly into that pot. And there was drainage in the pot and everything, so I thought it was fine. But, so let me show you, this is the pot first of all. And at first glance, it doesn't look very big, but if you've ever dealt with peperomias, the roots are very thin and not necessarily weak, but they're very thin so they can break easy, and they're just very easy to overwhelm with too much water. So that was the case for these ones. The roots were nowhere near filling up that pot, and even if I had put the 3rd plant in there, it just still wouldn't have done very well. So these two, the 2 plants that I had potted in that big square pot were like, they weren't actively dying, but they just stopped growing, which was really weird to me. And they didn't stay in that pot for very long because I kind of caught on and I was like, oh, I need to get these out of there. So I took them out, repotted them into their own separate pots, but it just was so incredibly apparent how much they hated being inside that pot. And then with my Macaulay's Finale that I showed earlier, my repotting video I did because it was in too big of a pot for its roots. And if you go check out that video, you can see the roots are actually basically non-existent. Like there's so, like, it's so little, and like the roots are so thin. It was so like damaging to be in that pot. It hurt the roots so much, and it probably would have completely killed the plant if I didn't downsize it to a new pot. So don't repot into a bigger pot unless it's literally root bound, because in my experience, I haven't found a plant that actually doesn't like being a little bit root bound for a bit, because it will start showing you when it needs to be repotted. Other than that, don't touch it. Don't do anything. So usually people say like, oh, you don't have enough light on that plant, it needs more light in order for it to grow more. And yes, but that's a bit easier to see and take care of than the mistake that I see more often than not, which is putting it too close to the window, too close to the light. And a lot of plants can actually handle this and do just fine in that, but surprisingly actually, because usually plants with dark leaves usually don't have a problem with this as much. But I have these cuttings that I just put into this pot, and I have on this end, you can see that crispy leaf right there. That leaf crisped up because I had it on my windowsill directly in front of the light basically. And I'm gonna cut off this leaf soon, but I just haven't bothered yet. But that is because I had it way too close to the sun, way too close to the window. And like, you know, obviously succulents, string of hearts, all that sort of stuff can withstand that because they basically will take all the light you can throw at them. But another example is my marble queen. It would not do well in direct light because the white bits on the leaf would burn, and it would just completely like destroy all the foliage on that plant. So although yes, having enough light is important, it's also very important that you don't put something directly in like some bright direct light. Because that can be very harmful for the plant and it can make it look really ugly really fast. Also, when you have it too close to a window, you kind of subject the plant to like the cold drafts and just like the different changes in temperature that happen right next to that window. Because no matter how like insulated your windows are, it's going to change temperature a lot quicker and a lot more drastically than the rest of your house. So for instance, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Texas had a big snowstorm like a couple weeks back, and it wiped out a lot of people's plants. And one of the reasons for that is because the house got so cold. And now that was obviously a very unique circumstance and isn't going to happen to every single plant like on your windowsill, but this case kind of demonstrated why during the winter and especially colder places, you don't have your plant right next to a window, because your window, it basically gets those freezing temperatures that are outside, and your plant can be subjected to that as well. And you don't want to do that because the leaves will just completely shrivel up and the plant will decline so quickly. This also applies like during the summer, you know, the heat gets a lot harsher next to the window, but also if you have like AC running, or in the winter the heater running, if you have a plant directly underneath that or directly in the line of flow from that vent or whatever, that can also damage the plant because it's just not used to that sort of stuff. So just be mindful about where your plant is sitting and try not to keep it in those direct like airflow currents, because it can just be a bit weird for the plant to like handle, and it's just not normal, you know, like environment for the plant to be in. And one of the last tips I have is to prune away the dead bits on the plant. And this is for several reasons. First and foremost being, you don't want to keep like energy from the roots going into those dead bits, because if it's connected to the plant, there's going to be some energy sent to those parts of the plant, even if it like is pretty much dead and falling off. So you want to trim it as soon as possible, because once a leaf goes and like gets discolored or gets damaged or anything, it's not like skin, like it can't repair itself. So when the leaf starts getting yellow or like gets damaged, it's better, in my opinion, to cut that leaf off, because then you're not using all this energy from the plant that it's like working hard for to go towards these leaves that just aren't doing anything for the plant. And then the second reason for this is all of the dead like debris that falls into the soil. Pests are so attracted to that, and they will come and go into your soil, and it's not good. And that's when you're gonna get a lot of bugs and a lot of like stuff crawling around in the soil, and that's just kind of gross, and it grosses me out anyways. I don't know if it grosses everybody else out, but when you have all that dead stuff falling into the pot and just kind of sitting around there, it's going to attract so many pests, and it's just going to cause so many problems for you and the plants, because those pests are not always nice. But those are the top common mistakes that I see. If there's any that I missed, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope that we can all work harder to correct these mistakes before they happen. But thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. See you later.